I think both ways, because I'm interested to see whether or not TBR will, in fact, be able to have their way as far as trying to win this series and get to the top of the standings. It makes it very, very interesting if we have a bunch of teams that are 5-1. The potential tiebreaker scenarios that would result from that would be very, very interesting. But then also GA, I want to see them win a series. I'd like to see them, not go at the end of this regular season not having, at least won something. But it is going to be a tall task for them today. Is TBR. They are on a bit of a winning spree right now, tearing through the division. And they will be looking to add a fourth win to the column. Every win that they get puts them closer and towards the top of the standing, gives them an opportunity to potentially grab a second or first place finish, depending on how it goes. And they have a number of games left to play, so it'll be interesting to see where they end up in the next couple of weeks. But for now, we're going to focus on the match in front of us, and they got to clear through GA. And even though I think we have high expectations for TBR, that does not mean that they just get to automatically win a series. You have to play it through. And I'm sure GA would love to throw a wrench in their plans. So we'll see what they want to bring out in the first draft for both of these games. GA, they are banning away the Rengar. They do not want to see Chono get his hands on that one. A couple of impressive performances every time he's managed to get his hands on it. And so, yeah, they absolutely do not want to see the Danger Cat out on the Rift. Totally respect it. They're also trying to pinch the support pool just a little bit. They take away the Seraphine. They take away the Lulu. And TBR, they're going to pinch that top jungle pool. They're going to take away the Cassante and then ban away the Zahin and the Jarvan. And Garen going to be the first pick for GA. So immediately putting priority on trying to get a safe top lane matchup. We'll see what TBR wants to respond with. This will be interesting because they'll have a couple of opportunities to get kind of counter picks here, not only just within this first round of drafts, but then also having the last pick gives them plenty of leeway. And a couple of really good answers that could come out in response to that. Garen Ornn is, I think, maybe something they could save for later. They could probably punish this Garen a little bit harder, and they will choose to go with the Mbessa. Rather than try and get a mid lane pick. I think they can save mid lane until the very last moment in round number 2. And I like this. We've started to see a little bit more of Mbessa in this top lane, especially moving away from the jungle role, which makes a lot of sense. I think it's just one of those things where because Mbessa was nerfed fairly heavily, as far as her ultimate is concerned, it makes it a little bit more difficult to want to play her in the jungle. So putting her in that top lane role where she can have quite a bit of stability makes a lot of sense. And TBR in this first round, they're going to go ahead and grab their ADC. They should see if either of these teams will go ahead and round out the first round of draft with their ADC and support pick. With GA looking like they want to go ahead and secure their jungler here instead. Shyvana, I think, is maybe a little bit early to see this right now. I think maybe you want to try and wait and lock in support here. I think GA would be better served doing that just because the Shyvana is definitely punishable. Through some of the other jungle picks that are still on the board for TBR. And no matter what, Chono's going to get something that he's comfortable on. So I think GA taking a little bit of a draft risk and locking the Shyvana in that early. But I will say the Shyvana does have a great skirmishing, great team fighting power, and scales really well in the late game. So for GA, it's an investment potentially into thinking that they're going to be able to, get to that 25, 30-minute mark and get the most out of the Shyvana. And TBR, okay, a little bit of a draft flex. They have decided to lock in the Ornn for that top side and send the Mbessa into that jungle. So Chono deciding that he actually favors that matchup into the Shyvana, so he'll be getting his hands on that one. Does TBR want to switch it up a little bit, and so matching 1-for-1 everything that GA has been selecting so far. And I like the way that their draft is shaping up. They've got quite a bit of damage already between the Jinx and the Mbessa. And then plus the Ornn with a lot of additional safety. That traditional CC, that follow-up, that tank duty that he can sort of, that role that he can occupy. And then plus, once he reaches level 13, he can start to distribute all those ornaments, which is very fun for everybody that manages to get their hand on one. And the second round of bans coming through. Victor being taken off the board for GA. TBR trying to take away some of those safer picks and potentially force GA onto something a little bit more risky. We'll see what they want to try and force that through, because TBR, I suspect they're going to save their mid lane ban, or their mid lane pick for the final pick. GA taking their time, trying to figure out what they want to use their last ban for. And so Thresh and Soraka will be taken off. And TBR immediately want to hover the Karma, and I think pretty good with the Jinx. Now, I think Jinx is not necessarily the greatest of all of the available enchanters just because of how limited some of her later game utility is, especially just not having a healing element and not having a dedicated form of CC. But if TBR's idea is that they want to win through bot lane and play aggressively, then Karma definitely enables that. And the Jinx pairing alongside that makes a lot of sense. But they may have some struggles later on in the game, as is going to be the Ezreal and the Zilean combo in the bot side. GA, they want to try and match some of what Karma's bringing to the table, and I think this is a good time to bring out the Zilean, honestly, just because of the fact that the Karma is, you know, not going to be providing a tremendous amount of healing, and so if you're trying to sort of match what her kit brings to the table, then Zilean, I think, does a good job of that. Not only having the double chrono bombs, but obviously being able to resurrect somebody and speed them on up. So Zilean offers, I think, a lot more in the late game. And alongside an Aurora, too, that's going to be nice. So that way you can enable some more risky gameplay. Aurora can jump in and out with the weirding and the between worlds and try and pick people off. And if she goes a little too far forward, well, you can bring her right back. What do TBR would respond with is Aurelion Soul is still available, as is the Syndra, the Orianna, and it is going to be the Syndra pick for TBR. So they are getting themselves a little bit of skirmishing power in that mid lane. All right, folks, and a lot riding on this one, as we said just a little while ago. GA, they want to get that first win. They do not want to go actually 0-6. And TBR, man, they'd like to remove Silvermane's potentially from that third place spot and make a run at BBC or Bagging Pampers, so assuming one of those teams drops a game later on. At least one of them will, because we will be getting a matchup between BBC and BP, which is, I think, going to be an incredible amount of fun. But it all starts with a game number 1 in this series. And anything well and truly can happen. There's never a more dangerous team than a team that has absolutely nothing to lose. And, well, GA, not to be too mean about it, but they've been doing a whole lot of losing, and so they don't exactly have that much left to lose. Except maybe what shreds might exist of their demolished pride. And that makes a team dangerous. A TBR will need to be playing heads up and make sure that they're not giving GA any opportunities to get an easy win over, you know, cross your T's, dot the I's, make sure that you're not doing anything particularly stupid. I do like that QWERTY took Electrocute in this lane against the Syndra, who's running that Comet build. I think just having that extra trading power into Syndra, you know, especially once champions reach a level 3, is super nice. Because it gives you some threat in the lane. It gives you some ability to burst her out and make her think about the combos that she wants to try and land. Because Syndra does have to position very carefully to land them. And so I think at least in the early game, as long as QWERTY can hit the abilities, the Aurora should have an easier time getting those combos off. But and then once both champions kind of reach that level 5, level 6 mark, and they have access to the full kit, that's when all bets are kind of off at that point, to be honest with you. Because then Syndra just has access to the Unleashed. And so it can just throw that combo out anytime into the Aurora and burst her out. However, QWERTY does have that permanent trade advantage with the Ignite, so that's something that Philomena does need to be careful about. Make sure that she's not getting too aggressive, because if you sort of reach that quarter health threshold and that Aurora has full combo available, well, then you're just instantly dead, and that's first blood being given over, and that's definitely not the way the TBR want to start the series. Just taking a look at the jungle pathing. Both junglers playing it safe right now, neither doing anything particular crazy. Just want to get that full round of camps cleared, and then maybe try and establish some vision and play for a scuttle. They are going to be opposite jungling as well, so they flip-sided it. As, ooh, QWERTY already dropping below a half, and that is not where QWERTY would like to be. So we'll go ahead and channel that recall. But both junglers starting on the opposite sides means that we won't get any fights over the scuttle. And potentially a double scuttle angle here for Chono, as he's going to clear that one out and can go bot side. Also noticing that Dread Joker is walking through the lane. Ping's coming down. This Garen is a little bit far forward. League of Lehigh going to land the knockup. Paul does have access to the flash and the ignite. Does he choose to use it? Can he get to safety? He can. His Dread Joker's going to show here. Not sure whether or not Chono saw him. And so Chono going to go ahead and walk on out of here. It did already secure the scuttle, so won't be wasting any more time up there on that top side. Nice little rotation, honestly, from the jungler for TBR. You know, they didn't get a lot there. They got a little bit of pressure on Paul. Just give him something to think about. You know, making sure that he's aware, hey, we're up here. We can come and get you anytime we'd like. And if you push a little too far forward, it's easy. Oh, nice little trade there. Scout of the week. Uh-oh, Cordy may be a little too far forward. Peppermint going to land the tether. Cordy trying to throw down the ignite just as a chance to trade for something. Uses the flash as well to get to safety. That is the full kit out from the Aurora. And now TBR can gank that again anytime they'd like. And Peppermint staying around here, going to use the shield to get a bit of flash. Nice flash forward into Scout of the week. The tether lands. The kill donated over to Philomena. First blood for TBR and a nice little rotate. QWERTY not staying respectful of the fact that the Karma might have wanted to stay around. And a heads-up play for TBR to get themselves that early gold. As we're going to see that one again. Oh, no, we're not, because I don't have the thing enabled. Well, that's embarrassing. Let me turn that on for you guys. Sorry about that. Every time I think I'd have it turned on, I don't. All right, the replay is now channeled. And I am now suitably embarrassed for having thought that that was going, and it wasn't. But honestly, nice play for Peppermint. Good timing to rotate over there, and good discipline to stay and make fake QWERTY out like he was going to go back bot side, and then ended up staying. And that's the difference between, you know, the teams that kind of sit at the top of the standings and teams that, you know, are more towards the bottom. And it's not an insult to them. It's just the thought pattern that these better teams have, and, you know, these teams that have the hands diff and have the ability to play as a team a little bit better than others is, you know, these calls that they can make and being willing to take those risks. And QWERTY is now taking a massive risk and stepping that far forward in the lane. And it should just be dying here. Manages to jump over the wall. Is invisible for a short moment. Philomena lands the Scout of the week. That would be another kill. The QWERTY does manage to get to safety underneath the turret. But TBR keeping GA honest in this game right now. Making sure that nobody feels particularly safe to push up in the lane. The Paul has been visited. QWERTY has been visited twice by two different people. Now will it be Philomena's turn? Philomena used the flash to try and get that kill onto QWERTY earlier. But with the Aurora recalling, Dread Joker won't be looking for anything there. Not sure why QWERTY canceled the recall. Probably didn't want to lose the wave here, but I think you're taking a risk by staying away. Because even though there's nobody waiting over the wall, I think for QWERTY, you don't know that somebody's not there, and you could very easily have Chono looking for an angle. But luckily for QWERTY, Chono is towards the top side. Paul going to be dropping here. Even the ignite, sorry, the smite thrown down to try and knock him down. Does get to safety, so turns me into a liar. And Dread Joker just here to provide a little bit of physical support. Is forced to flash out. I'm not sure Dread Joker wants to go back in this Chono. Oh, does miss the public execution. That's what we're talking about in draft, as that ability is only dangerous if you actually land it. And that is unfortunate. Would have liked to have gotten a kill after having ticked over to 6 with it. But ultimately they will walk out. So they didn't lose anything, but they didn't gain anything either. But they might find something here. Is a Philomena and company are rotated towards the top side. Ping's coming down. Not sure whether that Dread actually saw them or whether or not there was just communication that the mid and the bot laner for TBR were missing, but they do just instead to decide to play it safe and walks out. Chris, sitting underneath this turret, is going to have to just let Robs and Glacier take these turret plays. There's really not a whole lot that he can do. This is potentially interesting. Is Lehigh is pushed a little bit far forward. Might be subject to a potential gank there, but QWERTY trying to go in the between worlds gets immediately caught by the Unleashed from Philomena. That's Syndra sitting in a nice 2-0. That's where you want the gold to go if you're TBR, if it's not going to be the Jinx. And so now that first dragon should just be going their way. And they can take that at their leisure. There is vision on it, but there's really not a whole lot that GA can do about it. So that first objective going the way is we're going to get a replay there. You can see towards this bot side, even though Leai's pushing up, there's no vision of where the junglers are at or anything, but they do catch QWERTY. For whatever reason, roaming through this bot side jungle, not sure what QWERTY was looking for here, but maybe trying to place aggressive vision. But either way, just gets immediately rotated on and gets punished. And I think it's... I don't know, I think that's an unnecessary risk for the side of the GA mid laner. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to be in there. You don't have your jungler anywhere near the area. Your bot lane's not pushed up to help you, so not sure what the rationality was there for Cordy trying to be in that bot side jungle, but it does get suitably punished. And Flash is still down for the next 30 seconds or so, so there's another opportunity for TBR to try and gank that lane again if they want to, but we'll have to see if that's something that develops. As the Ornhorn not doing as much damage as maybe League of Lehigh thought it would do, but Paul still getting forced out nonetheless. Dragon getting taken by TBR. This should just be an easy smite. And Dreadjoker, even though he had the rage stacked up, no ability to get over the wall, was spotted on the ward the entire time, so TBR under no risk of losing that dragon. And for TBR, I think that this game is going really the way you want it to right now, especially for a comp that does have a scaling element, you know, not only with the Ornn, but then with the Syndra and the Jinx. The fact that the Syndra is sitting at a nice even 2-0 has a significant CS lead over the Aurora, and that won't really be changed too much over the next 4 to 5 minutes, I think is a really good sign for the rest of this game to come. And I think as long as they continue to play cleanly, they'll continue to excel as they have through this early game. And for GA, I think right now it's just try and find a way to get more active in this bot side. They're doing a really good job in taking these turret plates. They're constantly pushing Koreas out and putting this Jinx under threat. Obviously, it would take a little bit more damage and a little bit bigger commitment from GA to actually kill the Jinx. As it stands right now, they would need to rotate their jungler over, I think, to make that happen. Or to full dive with Quirty, which they may be pinging for right now. As you want to talk about a champion that can absolutely make a dive happen, the Aurora can do that. And there is no help waiting for Korea, so this Jinx will always be going down. But Quirty is going to be eating quite a bit of damage automatically from the turret. Does manage to walk out. Glacier gets donated the kill. But let's see if TBR can trade for something in the meantime. As Philomena is teleported towards the bot side. Paul's getting ganked towards the top side. That's going to be the public execution landing, but it doesn't matter. Paul channels the ultimate. The Blade of Demacia comes down and slays Noxus's champion. As the Ambessa goes down there, and there was no trade on the bot side for TBR, so it is just a 0 for 2 for TBR across the map. So GA, a fantastic little recovery played there, and great call. Correctly identifying that the Jinx was isolated in that bot side, had no help. They even saw the support on Vision, so knew that the Karma wasn't going to be there to help keep Karis alive. So good little play for GA, and I want to see a couple more of those to see them stay scrappy in this. And Peppermint's still level 5 as a result of being out of the lane for so long. Hasn't ticked over that level 6. And he needs to find a lane to park there for a little bit to try to get back up to level 7. He doesn't want to be dropping too many levels to the Zillion. And Koreas does have the Ghost and does have Flash, but he is going to be exhausted here and will likely die. Forced to blow the Flash right now. Robs is doing a really good job of slowing the Jinx. One more auto would do it. Peppermint uses the heal to get the Jinx to safety, and they walk on out. But Koreas is going to be a lot worse for wear on that one in. Forced to use a summoner spell just to keep the Jinx alive. Does not feel good. Now, if you take a special look at the bottom right hand of your screen, you will see that Chono has been spotted out. As I was going to try and set him up for this really cool gank call, but instead he's going to get spotted out by both members of the GA bot lane, and he will have to walk on out of there. And since there is no objective for at least another minute and 50 seconds, he will just have to be content with having taken a stroll, as League of Lehigh still continuing to get the better of Paul in this 1v1. Philomena under pressure in the mid lane as well, forced out the flash. Quirty starting to recover. A lot of CS to be made up for there before that lane is well and truly even, but the fact that they're able to push the Syndra out is a really good sign that they're actually starting to recover. And Quirty up, even as I was singing the potential praises, it was potentially caught out by Chono, but Dreadjoker is here to provide a little bit of support and cover for the mid laner, so they will be collecting this plate. And Chono will not be getting any kills onto the adorable bunny girl. Fun fact, I've never had rabbit, but I have heard that it is fantastic. I've heard that it tastes great. Paul. I respect that, being a little bit of a nuisance, just walking up to Lehigh like he might have done something, but ultimately does not. Paul also doing a really good job in his top lane, I think it has to be said, given the amount of tension that he's been shown. from Chono. And so the fact that he has a pretty good CS lead and already has a first item completed, I think speaks volume to how well that Paul is playing. Pretty sure. Gonna be a happy camper in that bot side collecting that solo first turret gold. And is obviously stocking up nicely on experience. Let's see if that's gonna matter right now, because he hasn't had a chance to spend that gold. Is still sitting on just a Triforce and some bargain bin components, including the bow and the tier, which he hasn't fully stacked yet, so that won't be doing a tremendous amount of damage. My God, Philomena just keeps landing these scatters of the week. My goodness. You can stop anytime you want. Now, right now, TBR, I think, have a much better itemization point as a whole than what GA has right now, and so I think this dragon is theirs to, I think, safely take, and I think GA also recognized that as well, and so they just choose not to engage in that what is almost assuredly a losing fight, and they'll just kick that potential problem further on down the road. It is the second dragon, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not drag point, and so they have a little bit of leeway to work with. And I think if they can make the next 3 or 4 minutes go their way and start to win some of these skirmishes and start to finish some second items on their carries, you know, get a second item on 40, get the second item finish on Glacier, they can start to fight a little bit more effectively. Is Paul eating some turret shots. League of Lehigh lands the second cast of the Oran Horn. The Ignite's going to expire, and Otto finishes it. And meanwhile, on the bot side, the Jinx is also in a frenzy. Courtney gets to the backside, manages to take her out. But Courtney will be dying here for sure. Chono's going to pick that one up, so it's a 3-for-1 across the rift. GA gets caught out on timing a little bit, and Paul got punished for being a little bit greedy. And it may not be over yet. Philomena putting the damage into Glacier. 2-level lead. We're going to see a replay of how that one kicked off. So Paul spends a lot of time in this top lane, pun intended, on the spinning. Just trying to do what damage he can to Lehigh to force him in, but Lehigh is plenty of health to absorb this. And then once the Ignite expires, he's really not afraid of anything, especially with the health that Paul had, and then just able to just lock that kill in. And then the bot side, it starts off with the Shyvana immediately getting killed. Correas trades his life for that, but honestly it's worth because Chono cleans it up on the backside, and so it's 3 kills. Right over to TBR and accelerates their gold lead again. And Jay had just been doing a really good job in limiting the amount of gold that TBR was getting across the map. They had responded with that turret plate, got the solo experience of the gold onto the Ezreal, and so, if that play doesn't happen to the bot side, if they're a little bit more cautious, there's a world where there's absolutely no lead at all, and then TBR are waiting for the next tempo play. But GA did a good job, TBR did a good job to find the timing. And they may have found another timing here. League of Lehigh knock up onto 2 towards the wall, forcing the remaining members of GA out of here. Glacier not in a position to do the damage yet. Scatter the weak onto 2. Dread Joker will be resurrected. 2 gets stunned from TBR. The Arcane Barrage comes out to just try and force some of the TBR members back, but it will be GA beating a hasty retreat. And now Qwerty has arrived here, wants to see if he can find something. The health bar's not the greatest for TBR, but they have the ability to fight. Big ultimates used on both sides, so now it's just about landing the incremental damage. GA, they do manage to force TBR out of this side of the river, at least for now. Meanwhile, on that bot side, though, Correas is going to trade for the turret, so bringing that to parity for TBR, and the fight gets called off. Everyone goes their separate way. And after bashing each other over the head with a couple of ultimates and giving each other some nasty looks, both teams decide to part ways and call it a draw. Glacier needs to be careful here. Philomena does have kill threat. If even one full combo lands, it's a pretty quick death sentence. Now let's see if TBR, they want to try and make another attempt towards this Herald. Paul is still pushed up, but I don't think in any danger. Has the flash and can still walk out. 3 members rotating, but this would be an aggressive dive onto the Garen that will likely survive, especially with other Glacier Ascent members waiting in the wings. And so I think the call for TBR, just settle, try and go ahead and grab the Herald. You've already got positioning on it. You've got Dread Joker spotted out. He does have the Rage fully stacked, but he is getting prevented from getting access towards the river. The choppers will make it a little bit harder to get there as well. Teleport going to be channeled from Philomena as Double Bomb only stuns up the support. Smite goes down to secure the Rift Herald, and TBR, they get what they came for, and they're going to walk on out. It's a great call. Good discipline to not try and overly aggress for a fight on the side of TBR. In GA, that's going to sting a little bit because they were trying to prevent that objective from going down. It was why they had Paul positioning so aggressively towards the top side to make sure that they could have the first move towards that objective. But TBR You know, they're flexing their muscles right now, and they're being way more aggressive in their positioning. And also, I think part of that problem, too, was Dread Joker didn't have an opportunity to get anywhere close to get the Smite Steal, and was having his access blocked by the Chompers and by the fact that the Karma was just constantly tagging him, making sure that he couldn't get close. And I think that's the hard part for Dread Joker, is just trying to go unnoticed in these team fights, trying to get the flanking angles, which is easier said than done. Especially if you have someone whose sole job is to make sure that you get marked up. Dread Joker right now also going to get hit by the public execution, knocked down with the Q. And the Super Mega Death Rocket thrown out between the uprights just to make sure that that slimy little snake didn't get away. Yes, I did call a dragon a snake, because I'm not technically wrong. Oh, Chono. I was wondering if he was going to try and go stop that back, because the Ezreal was spotted on a ward. And let's see what GA want to do right now. My instinct is that they're going to say not to try and go for this. They're going to have to give their drag, I think. Just with how strong TBR right now. They have a pretty strong gold lead. And that gold is in the pockets of where it matters most. It's in the hands of that Syndra, especially for the team fight. Or at least for the team fighting capability. You want that gold to be there. And so I think GA correctly identifying that this is not the time to try and go for a potential dragon contest. That does mean, however, that if they want to try and stay in this game, they're going to have to fight for the rest of them, regardless of whether or not they want to. And TBR can leverage that pressure, knowing that GA have to come fight them at a disadvantage. And the question for me now is where they want to try and place this Herald. Traditional wisdom says you want to try and place it towards the mid lane to get that turret knocked down, especially with the fact that their own mid lane turret is not so healthy. You want to try and respond to that. Not only so that it's a safety element that GA no longer have, but then also so you can move across the map a little bit more efficiently. You can be more aggressive with placing your vision. And Chrono looking for a potential death sentence over the wall. Baron is spawned right now, but it would be a very, very early aggressive time to take it. Rob's already going to get sent into the Resurrect, but Koreas has placed down the Chompers, and so that Zilean will immediately be CC'd up. And Lehigh will also be grabbing a kill on the top side. So TBR, they're making multiple moves everywhere. They can do multitasking, which is something I can't do because I have ADHD brain. And so I'm a little bit envious of the fact that TBR have the ability to shot call like that. And GA will also be lamenting the fact that they have the ability to shot call like that, because now they are starting to lose a whole lot of gold all across the Rift. It's top lane turret go down. Herald going to get a second charge into the tier 2. Philomena will be here to respond to Paul. So at least GA are getting something, but it's just a consolation prize because the mid lane tier 2 is going to go down. It's going to be a huge injection of gold into TBR's pockets. And that is now going to be close to a 6,500 gold lead. And League of Lehigh is even going to get this last turret played on this top side. And Pink's potentially going up towards the Baron. Is TBR possibly feeling like they are in a good position to take it? And I would agree. There's now a gold lead in the pockets of everybody except Peppermint. Shame on you, Peppermint. How dare you not have a gold lead over the Zilean? As successful as you've been in assisting in team fighting. But I think that largely has to do with just how little time Peppermint spent in the lane, so it does make a little bit of sense. He is also technically a level down to Rob's in the same role, but I think that matters a little bit less between supports. Really, it only matters as far as the ranks in the ultimate. Let's see how aggressive TBR would be here towards this Baron. I have to say, about the only way that they could lose this game, at least right now, was to coin flip a Baron. But I do have it on good authority that TBR do be some gamblers, and so perhaps they are wanting to gamble with a fight instead, as the knockout for the Ornhorn's going to land on a 2. Chompers won't secure anybody, but Dread Joker and Rob's forced to get out of here, and in fact will probably be the Zilean getting donated as Chono cutting off any avenue of escape as Koreas is going to lock down the Zilean. The ultimate expires just a little too late onto the Shyvana. Glacier running for the hills, trying to get the hell away from the Jinx, but it doesn't matter as the rockets into the back from the mystical Explorer. Knocks him down. It's a triple goal for the Jinx, and now this Baron is absolutely safe for them to go get. So there will be no Ooga Booga coin flip for TBR. They're just going to go get the big purple worm and look to put the finishing touches on this game, because as soon as they take this and channel the recall, you know what's up for them? A nice, juicy, sweet Infernal Soul. And if there was Emerald Soul that GA didn't want to have to be forced to fight for, it was going to be that Infernal Soul. For the next few seconds, they're going to have their work cut out for them because they're going to have to go fight for it. GA, they're going to look to respond. They're going to try and shove out these waves as far as they possibly can to eliminate the direct pressure from the Baron. Typically, that's your best recourse. As soon as you can, just try and get the waves to at least the mid lane point and grab as much resources on the map as you can before the next big fight, because you know that once those waves get synced, TBR are going to be able to push you into your base. And so good job by GA. They're going and grabbing what they can, including that mid lane turret. So that gives them a little bit of onus to move around the map right now. And they're cutting some of the safety away from TBR. They're also here at this dragon first, so there's an opportunity for them to win a fight. Qwerty over the wall, wants to lock down this Jink, hits the weirding, but not much more damage. Glacier's already gone down, and GA, they just don't have the damage, they don't have the items, they don't have the ability to stand in front of any combination of the members of the Order of the Black Rose. Robs is next on the board, it's over the wall. Philomena goes on a rampage, and now Dreadjoker beating a hasty retreat, and this dragon absolutely is going to go towards the side of TBR. They may not even need it, as they're going to start to sync up their waves. They're going to shove 3 lanes out. This Philomena is going to go towards that bot side with a fairly thick wave. And Curious and Peppermint are going to shove that wave as far as they can. They know that it's at least 10 seconds on the majority of the dead members from GA. Almost channel a recall here. Wait a minute, maybe he's able to find 2 kills. Korea's doing a really good job of putting the damage in. Paul thought he had an angle, but turns out that angle only sends him straight back to the fountain. He was not goated with the sauce. He thought he had the play, but he in fact did not. That's going to be Infernal Soul and likely the game going over to TBR now as they have Baron for at least another minute and a quarter. This bot lane turret's going to fall. Philomena picks up the kill onto the Aurora. And now for TBR, it's all about closing it cleanly. Dreadjoker, I'm not sure that this is the person you want to try and spend your efforts to get, as League of Lehigh is not the best target for your ire, as you're already going to be losing at bare minimum 2 inhibs. Rob's going to call out the turret. He's going to knock, or sorry, rather wait to kill Robs. He will wait until that ult expires, kills him with the, ooh, nice timing. Or sorry, unfortunate timing, rather, is Zillion at least had the last little bit of the ulti on the duration. But this won't stop League of Lehigh from taking down this turret, as the minions are going to put the final damage in, and TBR are going to look to put the final touches onto this one. As Qwerty is still dead for a couple of seconds, Arcane Barrage comes out, but does absolutely nothing. Chono forcing everybody for GA back, and now it's going to be Philomena dominating the Jinx, completely taking over with the triple kill. The final autos into the Nexus. It's a quadrant for TBR's ADC, and it's the first win of the series for TBR. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready to get into draft for game number 2. TBR already off to a 1-0 lead. GA, this is the biggest do-or-die moment it could possibly be for them. It doesn't get bigger. Either they win this and they give themselves an opportunity to at least fight for a game number 3 in this series. Lose, and they are 0-6 in the standings, and their season is over. Of course, it's over no matter what. This is their final match, but they have at least a small opportunity to salvage some glory. And so we'll see how they want to do that. GA, they are still banning that Rengar. They want nothing to do with that champion. Makes sense. When you see somebody go 22 and something on a champion, you tend to want to make sure that they don't get to play that again. And Chono will forever be sad the fact that that Rengar was in fact exposed so early. And so I don't ever expect Chono to get that champion for the remainder of the season, but I have been wrong before. But for GA, you can't ban everything. You gotta have to let something through. So we'll see if they have a better chance of winning now that they're on the red side. They will have the final counter pick. The question is where they want to use it. TBR, what priority do they want to put on a lane in this game? Let's see if they try and lock in top lane and then protect it as much as possible. They could wait until the second round of picks to lock it in. So I was interested to see how much onus a particular team puts on a lane, or at least a role, just because, you know, the risk that you take in locking something in early. But taking risks is not something you have to do if you draft smart, and TBR have decided that they want to take very little risk at all, and they're going to grab the Smolder, which makes a lot of sense. This champion, one of the most flexible ADCs that we have currently in the meta, and also just pairs with so many great supports. Gives you that scaling threat and that execution threshold towards the late game once you reach 225 stacks. I feel like a broken record on that one, but it's really important because if you can be efficient in your farming in the early to mid game and get that power spike on early, it gives you a lot of flexibility to play the mid to late game. But GA, they want to try and limit that as much as possible, so they're going to themselves a very aggressive Lucian Nautilus. They want to put as much pressure on this boulder as possible. And given what they drafted in the last game, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because they had permanent priority in that bot side. There was really no ganks that threatened them. I think TBR just decided that they wanted to play elsewhere on the map. And so GA, perhaps reading that that might be the possibility again, and so they want to punish it even harder. Let's see what TBR want to draft. Do they give this Smolder some early protection? They, in fact, do, and they will grab the Braum in order to do it. We have one final pick here in this first round of picks. I think they're probably going to lock in a jungler here if I had to guess. There's a number of them that are still available. Viego, Kane. Oh, no, they are going to make me a liar and potentially lock in this Cho'Gath. At least before the top. I say potentially because it could still go jungle as like a matter of course, but I would be very surprised if it did. Whoops, it's the volume. I'm trying to adjust that. It's a GA. They've seen the bot lane and they've potentially seen a top laner here, and so they will grab themselves an Irelia, a champion we have not seen in a hot minute, to try and contest this Cho'Gath. They want to go in this early game as much as they possibly can, and they are putting themselves in a feast or famine position with this draft. Lucian Nautilus is more capable of making the most out of that feast, but the Irelia is a big risk here because this is a champion that either it completely takes over the game or it is completely worthless. And so this Irelia, I fully expect to see it played with an Ignite, maybe even a Ghost as well, just to try and get aggressive onto the Cho'Gath. And I fully expect this Irelia to try and take over the lane. I expect Paul to do what he can to try and get an advantage there. Because if he does not, and if TBR are able to gank that Irelia and put it behind, it's kind of game over in that top side. And so it's an additional risk too, because Irelia is such a money-hungry champion, and her items are incredibly expensive, so she needs to get off to a really good start to be efficient with the building. Or with the itemization that she wants to get. And if you don't, then there's really very little recovery that you can get unless you happen to win a lucky team fight at that point. And you know what they say, hope is not a plan. And GA trying to do what they can to make sure that TBR doesn't get anything that can affect it too much in the mid lane. So they take away the Vigar and the Aurelian Soul. TBR want to make sure that there's no further dive follow-up, so they take away the Nocturne and the Victor, which makes a lot of sense. And GA, they're, I think, going to want to try and save either their mid lane. Yeah, they're going to save their mid lane pick. So they lock in the Wukong here. So they get a little bit more dive. The Wukong makes a whole lot of sense with this composition. I actually really like this pick from GA. You know, if your goal is to get onto the back line and just smash team fights and small skirmishes, you've gotten a great comp to do it, especially if you can enable this Irelia. And TBR, they can look to select their mid laner here. They're going to get countered no matter what, but they can get a jungle counter. Kane, Viego available, as is the Sejuani. The Skarner also available. It might be the Cho'Gath. This could be Darius in the top lane. This could either be Cho'Gath or Darius in the top side. There's also a crazy world where this Cho'Gath goes mid, depending on what GA pick. But this could also be Darius jungle, just to try and limit the Wukong a little bit more. But I would favor Darius more into Irelia. And so, yeah, TBR locking in this RA to try and counter some of this aggression that GA have to try and limit some of their forward pressure. They're going to draft this RA, which makes a lot of sense. So that confirms that the RA is going to go towards the mid lane. And so I fully expect it to be, I say Cho'Gath in the jungle, but I've been wrong before. And Ori, going to be the lock-in for GA. I love it. I love what GA put together. This composition makes a tremendous amount of sense. And so I fully expect GA to try and put as much pressure towards that bot side as possible. And hopefully, if they can, convince Chono not to go towards the top side, instead try and focus towards the bot lane. That way, this Irelia can have a lot of alone time with this Cho'Gath. As I am curious, the fact that Chono did not buy items. So he is going to have to go there and back again. A tail by Bilbo Chono. His ping is going to get traded on the wards. Good news is the buff doesn't respond super early, even though they've changed the timing, so he will at least be there in time to get the objective. Also, what a different world we live in now, where junglers no longer need to be leashed. That is an adaptation I think no one ever thought would happen, is junglers getting to the point where they don't call a support or an ADC over to help them. But if you're just joining us and you're wondering where to be looking, keep your eyes in the top lane and the bot lane specifically, although no disrespect to mid lane, I'm sure that'll be spicy, but it's really those two lanes that I'm fully expecting GA to try and be aggressive through, and we're already starting to see that. Paul moving Lehigh off that wave, which is exactly what the Irelia wants to do. You want to limit Lehigh being able to farm it all. You want to limit Cho'Gath being able to stack his health and get his Devour procs off. But for all the intents and purposes of GA's draft, they do need to be careful. Because if you are pushed too far up, it isn't that hard for Chono to come gank. And like we talked about, the big win condition for this top side is that Irelia being given that 1v1 time, that alone time, to put the Cho'Gath on the back foot, just farm, and potentially even get a 1v1 kill. But if Chono gets involved there and they put that Irelia behind, that would be, I think, worst case scenario for GA. Lehigh needs to be careful how aggressively he's trying to trade into that. Aurelia's flash forward, Philomena, full combo, ignite, comes down, shielding, immediately available. Cordy ticks to the one last auto. Dreadjoker, can he get on one auto as well? Does have the speed, had the red buff, so does trade. But First Blood goes over to the Ahri, and TBR not going to be too unhappy about that. Yes, it's a 1-for-1 trade, but full summoner's blown except for the teleport out from the Orianna, which is getting used now, so TBR going to be happy with that. And already giving something GA to think about. So we're going to get that replay. And so you kind of see there in the mid lane, Cordy just steps up a little too far forward, gets Ignite, or Sunlight, but gets Electrocute procced. And then Philomena flash forward to confirm the full combo and knew that he needed to commit there. Or sorry, knew that she needed to commit to get that last auto. Because if you make that investment and don't get the kill, I think that's a heartbreaker for Philomena. But did commit, does get it, and so worth for TBR. And I think one of the unintended side effects of that play, too, for TBR is the fact that they drew over Dreadjoker, who may have been just trying to keep his head down and get the early camp clears done just so he could maybe egress towards bot side. But not the worst investment, honestly, for the Wukong, because you did come away with a kill. And it's a kill that you otherwise may not have gotten. So it's hard to say that he was hard done by. This bot lane is already a lot quieter than I thought it was going to be, especially with Glacier and Robs playing the champions that they're playing right now. Of course, Braum does make it hard to kind of fight to some degree, especially because he can block a lot of the directional stuff that Nautilus and the Lucian can throw out. So I think as long as Curious and Peppermint keep this wave kind of roughly in this spot, I think they're going to be okay just to farm this out, which suits them perfectly fine. As long as that bot lane is quiet for them, they'll be happy. Already 18 stacks as Lehigh gets ignited. Paul trying to walk forward, has the Conqueror prop, tries to get underneath the turret, but wasn't able to finish it. Was able to finish it off, turning me into a liar. I thought for sure he was going to live there. Chono, good job to grab Glacier, and now Rob's going to try and get out as well. Chrono's got the movement speed, he's got the damage, is going to slow the Nautilus, wants to try and get away. Chono, sorry, won't follow any further to try and get Robs. But that is definitely not what GA wanted, so it's kind of half and half milk right now for them. As on one hit on the top side, Paul did get that 1v1 kill onto Liga Lehigh, onto that Cho'Gath, which is what they wanted. But then on the bot side, Chono not going where I thought maybe he would go, went towards that bot side and helped set up the kill, and this Lucian already down now. One death, and will be put further behind. See that replay again, because that was a little bit of a split call. So you can see GA, they're already pushing aggressively. Chono, making his way towards that bot side, knows that fully that he wants to gank there. And I think that maybe they thought they were safer than they were because Qwerty popped that Scryer's Bloom, and so just thought that, maybe Chono wasn't waiting there. And Paul, maybe thinking that the Darius might be up there as well, but wasn't, so was down there. They get the kill onto Glacier, and then Robs is lucky to get out the way he is. Lucky that Peppermint wasn't closer to confirm the stacks to get that stun. And so a little bit of a mixed bag for both of these teams. Lehigh, about the only thing he's got right now is some bargain bin shopping. He's got a pair of boots and a dusty book, and let me tell you, that is not what you want against the level 6 Irelia that unfortunately just missed the ultimate. You hate to see it. And Philomena is going to be punishing Qwerty yet again for not having flash. Throws out the full combo. Dreadjoker wasn't visible for a moment. Gets spotted out, though. Philomena with very little mana left. But isn't going to be under threat from the Wukong that doesn't have level 6. And so TBR being really scrappy in this early game. I like to see that. They're trying to do exactly what they needed to do, or what they wanted to do as far as bridging that early to mid gap, like we said that they wanted to, which was use the Darius, use the Ahri to bridge that gap, make sure that you're not just, being completely taken advantage of through this early game. As Rob's landing the Dredge line onto probably the worst target. Peppermint jumps forward, wanted to try and get the stun confirm onto Glacier, who immediately punishes him for it. And so the Braum will be a little bit worse for it. Does have the heal, though, so not in too much danger right now. League of Lehigh gets the 1v1 Devour onto Paul. Somehow was within execution range as Chono came up there and put a little bit of damage in to help that Cho'Gath. And Irelia now 1-for-1. It had that Vampiric Scepter, but wasn't enough to heal off of there. And meanwhile, top and bot going through some fighting. Mom's going to get called over. Robs is absolutely going to get donated over here. Glacier just wants to make sure that he doesn't get collected as well. As Korea stepping forward, Glacier pops the barrier. As Glacier gets dangerously low and is forced to channel the recall, doesn't want to stay. Needs to be careful, though. This is a greedy recall. As Peppermint tags him up, it would be unfortunate, but they will just let him go. And I think this is the right call, TBR, not to go and bug the Lucian and stop the recall, because now they can let that wave go into the turret. They can potentially go and get some plates. But for sure, they're going to be getting the first dragon, and so GA is starting to slip up a little bit here in this early game. And the hands difference already starting to make itself known. There's the Order of the Black Rose going to be really good about this early game right now. Not a whole lot of a gold lead for them, as Philomena going to get hit by the Shockwave, but can walk out because he has friends waiting in the wings. And so Chono will just babysit this Ahri for a moment and let her get the recall out. But honestly, good job, TBR. Oh, Chono maybe caught out here. Dreadjoker doesn't have the Cyclone. Chono can't just walk this out. Dreadjoker not close enough, and no Shockwave available for the Orianna means that there's going to be no CC available to lock up the Darius. And so, about the only thing that Chono pays with is a little bit of his health bar, which isn't the worst. Now, Paul throws down the ultimate, does miss the stun, though. Lehigh manages to get the knock-up. He wants to wait for this Conqueror to fall off of Paul, but that's not going to make a difference as Paul gets the 1v1 there. Philomena, though, in the mid lane, manages to land at full combo, all forward, all back, right in front of the Monkey King, saying, I killed your mid laner right in front of you, and you can do nothing about it. And now TBR going to be looking towards these grubs. Darius can have an easy time taking those because he is, in fact, an AoE champion. And obviously the Wukong's position is known, so that play is just free. And now I'm starting to worry a little bit for GA. About the only bright spot right now for them is Paul winning this 1v1 very heavily in the top side. And I think it's important to note, too, that the only reason that Paul died, at least in that couple minutes ago, is because Chono did get involved there and put enough damage where Lehigh could play aggressively, could flash forward to get that Devour. So outside of the Darius getting involved there, Paul should just continue to kind of run that lane. And is already building towards that Blade of the Ruined King, which I think is just kind of the only buy that really makes sense as far as a first item for Irelia. You could make a case that Triforce is a good buy as a first item, but I think it's so expensive. Even though the costs are kind of the same as far as Bork versus Tri. That's not so much an argument as far as the cost, but I think just Blade of the Ruined King is better, especially for trying to cut through the innate tankiness that the Cho'Gath has. Oh, nice flash forward. The charm connects. Lehigh manages to land the silence. He can get the Devour anytime he wants. Even the Shockwave misses insult to injury. And Lehigh, after being donated a kill, he's going to teleport right on back towards the top lane and not miss a beat. Yeah, he'll miss a couple minions, but that won't matter all that much. TBR, I'm really impressed with the moves that they're making across the map right now. They're just not allowing GA to kind of rest on their laurels and rest on the innate strength of their composition. They're being proactive, and they're taking some of the wind out of GA's sails, so I have to respect it. And even right now on the bot side, they're trying to see if they can get something going. They've rotated the Wukong here, but this is unfortunate because the wave is pushing towards TBR, so they have absolutely no motivation to get anywhere near that mid-level or that midpoint of the lane. And so, unfortunately for Dreadjoker, who really hasn't had an opportunity to get too much more involved other than collecting some of the incidental kills from low health members, is just going to have to walk on out of there. He's going to go clear the next round of his camps. Philomena doing a really good job. Ooh, if that Charmed land, that would have been potentially disastrous for QWERTY. Just based off the CDs that the Ahri has right now. Now, the next big objective for GA to try and make a trade near is going to be this dragon. It's going to be spawning at about a minute 30. Glacier may have been potentially caught here. Throws out the ultimate. Flashes are trying to avoid being stunned, but gets tagged up ever so slightly by Mom Koreas. Wanted to try and see if he could help follow up. There won't be a kill there, but there will be a kill in the mid lane. Can Chono manage to get out of this? Flashes forward, has the movement speed. Second cast of the Cyclone, manages to get one, but Philomena has the damage. Dashes forward a little bit, and it's a double kill ends up going on as Philomena. Oh, I thought for sure that the Ahri would have that, but I guess the passive bleeding from the Darius was what finished it off. As TBR, they're going tit for tat for GA right now, and every time GA thinks they have a moment, TBR flips it right back on them. As we're going to see that play again. So it starts off on the bot side, at least for this little segment. Glacier trying to get away from both members of TBR. They managed to do so. But in the mid lane, though, Cordy, under so much damage, managed to win the shockwave, but goes down, sets up Dread Joker to at least get a follow-up kill. But then he has to... It takes so long for that Darius to go down that Philomena gets the full reset of the abilities and able to help get the double kill onto the jungler there for the side of GA. And so TBR, even though they don't necessarily have all of the early game agency, they have been making that early game work for them. Chono's going to land the apprehend. He's going to put the damage down. He's already got the bleeding, get stacked. Will he take this one as Philomena was hit by that shockwave and was pulled back a little bit, but doesn't matter. Chono slays the mechanical woman in the mid lane yet again, and now this should just be their dragon. 10 seconds until that objective spawns. No mid lane presence whatsoever. Philomena will be running out onto the rift again, and so this, at least on timing and on pressure, should be theirs. And by the way, I just want to point out, in that in that replay, even though it's not going to matter, Paul did try to throw out the ultimate to tag League of Lehigh and missed it. I just want to throw that out there just in case Paul thinks that we didn't notice. Just like the moment where Tony Stark pointed out someone was playing Galaga, we did notice that you missed that ult. And we did notice that Glacier was a little too far forward, and Chono wants to try forward and try and grab Glacier. He will be able to. Ultimate will be channeled from the Nautilus to try and buy a little bit of space, but that's not going to matter at all. Chono couldn't go use the recast of the ultimate. It's going to be a double kill for the Darius. Gets collected by Dread Joker, but that's all that they'll be trading for. So a 1 for 2 in the bot side. Again, TBR just trading with advantages and maybe even getting more. Oh no, QWERTY throws out the shockwave, but it doesn't matter. Philomena's on a killing spree. No Darius to interfere this time. This is going to be the 4th kill of the game for TBR's mid laner. And now for GA, this is starting to go from bad to worse to hellish. It's a 1,000 gold lead, but that lead doesn't really encapsulate just how ahead TBR is, not only just in terms of pressure, but just in terms of map control and their ability to kind of dictate the pace of the game right now. And GA just kind of feels like they're a little bit out of sorts. They're not able to kind of quickly respond to what TBR is doing. And about the only bright spot for Glacier Ascent has been in that top side with this Irelia, just trying to keep this Cho'Gath under control, but it's only 2 kills to 1. It's going to be a completed Proto Belt as a first item for Lehigh. And Blade of the Ruin King already finished for Paul. Now TBR going to be looking to secure their second Drake of the game. It's good timing too, because if they can get this and then run immediately over to Herald, it would be a nice little power play. They can relieve some of that pressure that Lehigh's been under. There will be no contest for this Drak, because unfortunately, Dread Joker is nowhere in the vicinity to help take this down. And even QWERTY, who was trying to step up to get some vision, is going to be forced to blast cone away. Lehigh gets tagged by the ultimate, flash forward, does flash forward into the stun, unfortunately walks forward into it, as the Protobell is what took him there, so Lehigh getting yet another solo kill. But TBR, they're trying to trade in the bot side. Chono gets yet another kill, 7-2-1 on the Darius. Somebody stop this man. He can't keep getting away with it. And I think TBR, they fully made the call to just sacrifice this top lane. And excuse my friends, but they don't give a shit about this Cho'Gath going down early. They're getting stuff in the bot side. They're getting kills. They're getting the work done. They're on a 9-5. And their 9-5 is 9 kills. Getting close to being in the pocket of Darius. I was trying to make that little palindrome work, but it didn't work because he only has 7. So we'll just move past that like I didn't just say that. And Paul at least will be collecting that solo turret gold. And now GA, they need to make an adjustment to get this Irelia involved in these skirmishes, these fights now. The 1v1 time, I think, for them is now over. You're at a deficit that's starting to grow. And you need to find ways to try and answer for that. So this top lane turret going down will be the signal for the Irelia to start to move through. Because I don't know why Paul's going back towards that top side. I think that's the wrong call. Unless GA's intention is to immediately fight for this Herald. But they're going to be late on the play. They haven't rotated everyone over there fast enough yet. As TBR have already started up this objective, it's already going down, so there will be no contest here. They're going to smite and devour it. And someone needs to go pick that up. Someone, please go pick up the Herald Eye. Is League of Lehigh will eventually go grab that. Rob's trying to run for his life right now. Gets ignited. Philomena not going to follow any further. Dread Joker here. Throws out the Cyclone. Cyclone only grabs, or sorry, the Shockwave only grabs one. Rather, Peppermint was pulled back. He's going to throw down the Glacial Fissure. And Philomena will go down in the end, but it's going to be traded for Paul, so they put a stop to that Irelia stacking. And Peppermint will be able to get to safety, so it's only a 1-for-1 in the end. And then Rift Herald given over to TBR. And League of Lehigh will be able to throw that down in that top side so he can collect these standing plates and possibly this turret and answer back for that. And so, again, GA, just every time it feels like they're starting to get an incremental advantage, TBR just does something to bring it back. And the Herald going to get someone to the top side, so a lot of gold about to be injected into this Cho'Gath, who is, by the way, not even really tanky. He only has 5 stacks right now. And he will continue to become more and more impressive as the game goes. Eventually, he will reach a point where they're not concerned about the Irelia, and that Cho'Gath will just be able to permanently tank everything that the Irelia wants to throw out. And I think GA have kind of recognized where this game is going to start to develop and the direction is going to start to go. And so the Hull Breaker already completed for Paul signals to me that they want to leave this Irelia permanently in a side lane now. They don't want it to team fight. They just want to try and knock down turrets and try and convince multiple people from TBR to go answer the Irelia. But, you know, the thing is, TBR, I think, have shown that they have no problem sacrificing, you know, structures in a lane to get advantages elsewhere. And Ping's coming down very, very aggressively right now for the side of TBR. Chono is going to grab up the Nautilus. Maybe not necessarily the part that the one they want to start with, but they will be getting that. It's going to be dead from below, put onto Koreas, who is getting a little bit of space. Philomena there to help cover that as well. Meanwhile, Chono collects the Nautilus in the backside. Koreas living for so long. Teleport channeled from Paul. Now what can, sorry, not from Paul, but from QWERTY. What can they get done? The Darius gets slain, but it's a 1-for-2 in the end. Meanwhile, League of Lehigh does get himself down there. They're going to knock up and get 4. The only one left on the Rift for GA is Paul, who can do nothing because he doesn't have a teleport. And League of Lehigh will go right back to what he was doing before, and TBR with a massive team fight win. Gonna get the turret. They're gonna have a massive lead, 2.6, and in 1 minute, the Dragon will surely be on the plate for them. Let's get a replay of that. It all starts off with Roms, which maybe is not the player that you think that they would want to go for, but they're just putting damage down and separating the players from GA. And then look at Dread Joker, was trying to get on top of this Smolder, but wasn't able to get close enough. They kill the Wukong before he can get anything done. Yes, QWERTY comes down, collects the 1. That's always going to be the free kill, but then that's just about it. As actually the kill wasn't onto the Smolder, rather, but it was onto the Darius, who had been sitting underneath the turret for a hot minute. Then they just call Lehigh down. They collect the last couple kills, get the turret. We're going to have to go into live as League of Lehigh trying to run for the hills. Paul wants to kill the Cho'Gath if he can. The damage and the Conqueror already procced. Needs another dash to get away. The Rupture buys him a little bit of space. Paul not able to get another slow. And so the Cho'Gath will make it out to safety. Meanwhile, Chono diving underneath the turret, gets the kill. Doesn't even need Philomena. But woof. GA. You're going to have to find something, because what they're going for right now just isn't working. And even Glacier and Dread Joker taking a risk stepping up this close into the mid lane. And I think for GA, I legitimately think that they're making a mistake in not getting this really involved in these team fights. You can play around this champion, which has an almost 2,000 gold lead. You can really start to change the pace of this game, but I guess that they've just decided that trying to play for these structures is more important. You know, trying to get that passive gold, trying to get that split lane pressure, that split lane threat going is the priority, but it just doesn't seem to be working right now. Yes, Paul is shoving these waves. He does have a significant CS lead. It's almost an 80 difference, but that's going to matter less and less as this game goes on, and they're not really doing a good job at winning these other fights. Here's an opportunity, Paul. Here's your time to shine. Dread Joker getting peeled away. Paul running away from this fight. They're going to kill the Wukong, and the Paul onto this Irelia is absolutely the next on the Rift. Not sure what they were waiting for. If you're going to be caught in that 2v2, you might as well fight, and Paul was going to go down with a whimper. As Lehigh, he's going to get a little bit of a catharsis kill there on that Devour. Gets himself to 8 stacks. And GA, now even the split push threat is not going to be on the line as Philomena just gets the kill on the bot side. GA are losing everywhere on this map, and they might not even be safe mid. They're getting pinched. Koreas on this other side will get hit by the charge from below and the hook. But it's not going to matter. Robs is now on his lonesome with not a prayer in hell to get out. It's an ace for TBR. They're going to walk potentially towards this Baron and grab that one up. They've got pressure on the bot side. They've got pushing waves in the mid lane. They won't go over to the big purple worm yet. They will instead focus on these structures and pocket that goal. TBR, they are off to the races, firing on all 5 cylinders. I say 5 cylinders because it's a 6-cylinder. Never mind, it's a mechanic joke. You guys won't get it because we don't have any mechanics in the chat. Dread Joker. Let's see if he gets tagged out here. He's going to get spotted by Peppermint, so they know that this Wukong was trying to flank. And so they can't just walk on out. And GA, when is your moment? When do you try and pull the trigger on a 5v5 fight? Because they have not done that a single time so far. The Philomena has access to this ultimate and 3 charges of it, but I'm not sure that it's going to matter. Glacier's going to throw out the ultimate to get a little bit of damage. Nice shockwave dodge. Philomena with another cast of the ult. Doesn't even need the third one. Gets to safety. I thought for sure she was dead. But shows me what for. And honestly, I'm happy to be wrong. Impressive play by Philomena to make sure that the hook didn't land, that the shockwave was dodged at exactly the right time, because a second too late. And that shockwave holds that Ahri in place, and it's a kill. But GA, this is dire straits in this game. 3 dragons down, 8,000 gold lead. They're getting pressured just about everywhere. They've only gotten the top lane turret. And they can't even send the Aurelia out to split push in that bot side just because of the risk of losing this Baron, which would be a death sentence for them. But GA, they could do something about this. If they can clear Chono, they would be able to eliminate this Baron threat. But that is easier said than done because Chono's going on a rampage. It's a double kill. Will it be a triple? It will indeed. TBR with this star juggler are getting it done. Liga Lehigh on the backside is going to kill the Orianna. TBR grab this Baron. And GA, this is absolutely has to be the beginning of the end, not only for this game, this series, but for their season. This TBR, they have shown time and time again in this game that they are unbridled masters of the Rift. And Glacier now just doing what he can to get towards the mid lane and get the hell away from this Cho'Gath. Liga Lehigh safe. Can land the Vorpal Spikes plus the knockup, which was dodged. Flash up from Glacier, but Philomena is there to help secure the kill. The number of people that have been on a rampage in this game for the side of TBR is honestly disgusting. But I think right now, if you are having to bet on a player of the game or a player of the series, Chono, I think definitely has to be it. Liga Lehigh, an honorable second mention, I think. Just with what he's been doing in this series, the amount of pressure that he's dealt with from the side of GA. It's an honorable mention, but I think just the standout performance, Chono, is my player of the game right now. But of course, we will, or sorry, rather, player series, but we will leave it to the fans to vote. They can always vote somewhere else. But I, as the caster, remember, I reserve the right to veto it on the grounds if I think it's stupid. I'm like Nick Fury, I can do what I want. Speaking of doing whatever we want, Chono is just chasing Robs out of the jungle. And if you look across the board right now, TBR, not only do they have item and gold advantages and kill advantages as well, not that kills give you a direct advantage, but they also have level advantage, and they're putting those levels to good use. As it's fighting on 2 fronts, coordinate Dread Joker and Robs, nowhere safe between these 2 turrets. Ooh, Philomena, that was an interesting flash. As Robs throws out the emote, but that's just going to be a little bit of a... I think a little bit of an ego saver there, as it's going to be the first inhibitor dropping in the mid lane. The second will be dropping towards this bot side. So now super minions will be pouring into the base for the next 5 minutes for GA. And so they, even if this siege ends here, they will not be safe. But TBR have no intention to end the siege right now, as Robs is going to preemptively try and throw out that ultimate, the depth from below. And that's going to get absolutely nothing down. Lehigh has joined the fight. The first inhibitor, this Nexus turret, has dropped. The kills are going down. The GA members are dropping like flies. They don't have enough bodies for all these fires. And even if they can get 1 or 2 kills, it just doesn't matter. QWERTY can't trade for anything. TBR... they finally have what they need to end this game. They're going to put down the Nexus. They're going to put down GA, and they advance to 4-1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live, and we are with our player of the series against GA. Chono, you guys, you advanced to 4-1. You're getting real close to usurping some of those other guys in the series. You had a clean 2-0 win. How are y'all feeling tonight?
Thanks for having me first. We feel really good about the games that we played today. I will say that every game we grow stronger as a team, so it's really good, yeah.
Yeah. Let's focus on the first part of the interview today, as far as the games in the series against GA. Two, I think, very very clean games. You guys very clearly have a strategy in how you approach these games, where y'all tend to kind of sacrifice sort of the top lane priority, and you kind of win through bot and mid. And then obviously, as a jungler, you are a huge part of that. Walk me through y'all's sort of philosophy as a team and how y'all kind of approach the game that way.
Okay, so the first game, if you look at the enemy draft, we kind of decided that the Garen would be a threat here if we let him play,
Mm-hmm.
because our team for the first game was more for team fight, and then if the Garen gets the chance to like push lanes, it's going to be hard for us to play. So I asked my bot lane if they were fine if I path from like bot to top and then
Mm-hmm.
just play around top lane to shut down Garen. I think it's the same for game two. Game two, Aurelia felt like she was going to be the threat,
Mm-hmm.
so that was also the play that we made. It's the same as the first game.
Mm-hmm. I noticed in draft for that second game, I think you guys kind of caught on to what GA wanted to do as far as the diving comp. You know, the drafting the Lucian and the Nautilus. They've got the Orianna, and then you've got the Aurelia, which is meant to kind of be that split lane push, and then you have the Wukong. Is there anything that y'all were concerned about once y'all started to kind of see that come together, or did y'all really have a plan for how y'all wanted to limit the diving potential from GA?
No, I think we had a plan. I think my Darius pick would be really good against them. Like it would be really bad for them if they try to make a dive.
Mm-hmm.
So we really think, like I said in the previous question, that the Aurelia is going to be a threat if we let him play. So that's where we kind of played around. Like as you can see for both games, our bot lane was kind of homeless, but not really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that a lot of us noticed was in the first game. It was kind of a flip where the bot lane was kind of left to its own devices very heavily, and then the second game, like that was their priority. I think, especially shutting down the Lucian and the Nautilus. So I think that was a great adaptation for you guys, and I think it's cool to see a team like y'all's, make that adaptation on the fly, understanding where the team compositions are strong, and so I think that's a testament to how well you guys are playing. Speaking of how well you guys are playing, let's look through the remainder of your schedule. So obviously, this match versus GA was one that was meant to be played several weeks ago, but you're just now making that up. Your final matchup of the season is versus BP. Now, BP has to play BBC. There is a chance that BBC loses, obviously, because we want to put the tinfoil hat on and see the best possible outcome. So BBC could lose to BP, and that would put Baggy Pampers at 5-0. And it would put BBC at 5-1. You guys would then play BP. You're at 4-1. They would be at 5-0. If you beat them, it gives you a three-way 5-1, and then there's a bit of a playoff thing that we have to happen between you and BBC. So I'm curious, what are your expectations for that final series?
Honestly, I think we all want the same thing, especially for the viewers. We all want to see some good League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure, we will try to win the next game, and then I'm looking forward to that three-way 5-1 and see what happens from there.
Can I get a prediction? I mean, do you think you beat BP 2-0? Or are you thinking beat up 2-1? I need something spicy. We need something controversial to get the fans invested.
Something controversial.
Something
I think I would just leave my brother to that.
Oh, come on. All right. Got to have the one person.
Okay, I mean, I'll just say here, my brother is Faker, I guess.
Okay.
There's a controversial
take. Your brother's Faker. One final question before you go. This Rengar pick is now permabanned. Do you expect to get that at any time for the remainder of the season going into playoffs? Do you think that team should be permabanning it from you, or do you think like you have a way to kind of get your hands on it later on in the season?
I think it's up for them to decide. I mean, like how Rengar plays, you face check and you never know what's gonna happen. But on a serious answer, though, I honestly don't know if I get to play Rengar in the future games. I think it depends on what the team would be cooking up in the background.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't expect to play it. If I do, that would be nice, but we'll see what happens.
So hoping for the best, prepping for the worst.
True, yeah.
All right, Jonah, well, before I let you go, the floor is yours. If you have any trash you want to talk, if you have any kudos you want to give out, if you have anybody you want to say hi to, then now would be the time to do it.
A shout out to my very pro weak side top laner who eats everything. Lehigh. Shout out to my
Shout out
brother.
Lehigh one time.
True. Shout out to my brother who's also faker. True, true. Shout out to my bot laner too. Everyone else. And then shout out to the teams we fought. All the games that I've played in this season have been really fun and has been a very good experience for me as a player because I'm usually used to solo queue environments. So this really put the test to like, team play.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the interview. Congratulations to you and your team on advancing 4-1. I think now technically you've beat Silvermane, so you have third place at bare minimum because you do have a better record than them right now because you're sitting at 4-1 and they're sitting at 4-2. So very interested to see how your final game goes, and I wish you all the best of luck for the remainder of the season.
Thank you so much for having me.